you ready for an entertainment experience of a lifetime? Knockdown, drag-out, hard-hitting conversations, debates, and interviews. Well, if you said yes to any of these questions, sit back, relax, and enjoy something like no other. This is the Isolation Series podcast, presented by wellbeingsperformance.com for all your online meeting needs, and by imprintpilates.com Toronto and the Greater Toronto Area's premier Pilates studio, also specializing in rehabilitation and athletic conditioning, and finally by greenstorage.ca Toronto and the Greater Toronto Area's #1 self-storage facility. Here now is your host, Spencer Miller.
Hey guys, and welcome to this Wednesday edition of the Isolation Series. Me, Spencer Miller. Very pleased to be joined by my co-host with the most and with the poofy hair going on right now. And that, of course, is the one and only Paul Shields. And Paul, this is a special edition of the Isolation Series because it is the first Isolation Series attached to YouTube. Would you mind explaining to the wonderful viewers and or listeners one more time off the top what it is that we have done to mitigate the stupidness that is going on currently with Instagram?
Yeah, sure, Spence. Well, we've decided to start a YouTube channel. You know, I think it's a natural progression as far as the show goes. We've been rolling since March now, and now we're just trying to spread our wings a little bit. And so we encourage everybody to check us out on YouTube.
I've been rolling a lot longer than March, but yes, I understand what you're saying for the purposes of this podcast. Thank you very much. Let's jump right in. Now I'm going to ask you a very simple question. We know that the Blue Jays have been on some kind of a run. They have gone 17-6 in their last 25 games. But as we sit here and tape today's show, they are currently down 7-0 going into the bottom of the fifth inning versus the Tampa Bay Rays. My question to you is, because they have had to use a lot of arms, or will have had to use a lot of arms in this bullpen day, that would have been Hyun-Jin Ryu's spot normally, but as we know, he went on the IL recently with neck tightness. Do you believe that this may contribute to a downward spiral for this team in the last 10 games, so that, all this excitement for the last 6 weeks will be all for naught? Or
no, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. I don't mean to cut you off, Spencer, but honestly, they're playing arguably the best team in baseball. The Rays have led this division wire to wire. It has never been in question since basically June that this team was going to win the American League East. And we knew that this was not going to be an easy season for the Jays, or easy series, for the Jays. The Jays still need to take care of their own business with the Twins, the Orioles, and the 3 games against the Yankees. This, they could have lost every single game to the Rays, and they would still have an unbelievable record for September. They'd still be in the hunt for this wild card spot. It's going to go down to the last minute. So again, even if they lose today, they still will sit a half game ahead of the Yankees. So they may lose some ground on Boston and whatnot, but yeah.
That is if the Yankees don't win tonight in their final game versus the Rangers, because the Yankees play the Rangers at 7 p.m. tonight.
Right, but the Jays hold a 1.5 with their win last night. So
okay. My bad.
I thought they had a 1.5. Either way, either way, you're still in the same position. Either they are ahead, the half game or one game, whatever it might be, or they are in their spot because their head to head with the Yankees is the same, right? They're ahead of the Yankees for the year. So, and they still have a game in hand, right? So there's. This doesn't concern me at all. And honestly, I feel for Ross Stripling, he got put in a bad spot today and didn't have a good start, obviously. But Hyun-Jin Ryu has been terrible. He's been the one thing that's been terrible in September. So if it was him in at the start of this game, there's no guarantee that it would have been any better. So I'm less concerned with this Rays series as I am with winning the series against Minnesota, sweeping the series against Baltimore to finish the season, and taking care of business against the Yankees head to head.
Right. Switching gears quickly here to go with the background of yourself right now. Tomorrow, all of the NHL teams report for training camp, including the Toronto Maple Leafs. My question to you is this. We talked about it a little bit earlier on in the summer when free agent frenzy began. Obviously, the Leafs were up against it again as far as cap room was concerned and things like that, which prevented them from bringing in that much of an impact free agent, one would say. But the question becomes, what are your expectations coming out of, a Jack Campbell, Peter Mrazek tandem now? Do you believe that Jack Campbell going into the beginning of training camp tomorrow is the number one? Or do you think it is still a toss up because Peter Mrazek has had some success for longer in the league and has been a number one in multiple different places?
Well, a couple things. I'm going to correct you. So teams reported today. Today was a media day, so everybody's in town in there, with the exception of player holdouts. Everybody's in their respective cities as of today doing media. And to answer your question, I have to take Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe at their word as far as how they went after Mrazek specifically to get a goalie to play in a tandem. They believe that having two quality goalies, a 1A and a 1B, however you want to say it, puts them in the best spot that they could do with their cap restraints and all of those things. So while I think Mrazek has the experience, I think both guys are going to have the chance to show what they've got. It would be really, really scary to go into the season thinking that Jack Campbell is your number one goalie. He was incredible last year, but let's remember that he was hurt a lot. He only played some 30 games. He played so just about half of the 60 game season. So to think that he could recreate that over 82 games, I think is asking a lot. I like Jack Campbell a lot. He sounds like a team guy. He sounds like the nicest dude, and he played incredibly well last year. So I would love to see him do really well. But I think they specifically went to get Mrazek to have quality goaltending. When either Mrazek or Campbell aren't on their A game, they can go to the other guy.
Do you believe that we might see the first real dose of adversity? I mean, I know he's seen it in little spurts and things with previous injuries as well. But in terms of Austin Matthews, because we know historically throughout the beginning of his career, he's been a fast starter, absolutely been a fast starter. And now we don't even know what his status is going to be come 2.5, 3 weeks from now when the regular season starts, because he is still recovering from wrist surgery. So do you think that this is going to have a negative impact on the way that he plays his game until he gets his quote unquote sea legs underneath him?
No, I have no issue. Austin Matthews has been through training camps before. He has the ability to skate. It's stick handling and shooting that he's not allowed to do right now. So I have no concern. You're right in the sense that, it can be tough not going through a training camp, but we're also talking about a player who has dealt with injuries in the past and has been able to bounce back very quickly. He feels to me like a player that when he steps on the ice, he's ready to play. So I'm not concerned at all, particularly with the way the Leafs season starts. With no disrespect to any of the teams they're playing, because they're all NHL teams. They're not playing the Tampa Bays and they're not playing that top tier, number one teams to start the season. So I think Matthews has a little bit of a few games at least to sort of get his feet underneath him, maybe get a goal or two in, even if he's not playing in that preseason. And again, you hope that we're getting proper information from Dubas and Keefe, who both said today in their media availabilities that they expect him ready for game one.
Now, one of the other question marks for me with this team is their captain. Last year, John Tavares did not have a John Tavares like season based on injuries and a few different things and things like that. My
I don't know,
question,
Spence. I don't mean to disagree with you. I don't mean to cut you off, but he was a point a game player last year. People look at his start, which was not good. You're correct. His start was bad, but he still almost had a point a game. And that's very Tavares like to me. Sure, could he push closer to 90 or 95 points? Probably. But that narrative is a strange one to me.
okay, first of all, I'm liking this feistiness out of Paul Shields, ladies and gentlemen, on this Wednesday. We've been on the air now for about 12 to 15 minutes, and you've already cut me off twice. This is very unusual.
I'm ready. I'm fired up today, Spence.
Yeah, it's probably because, pulling the curtain back, I slept in later than I normally do, and we were supposed to do this morning, and so that may have got you a little bit hot.
That's right. Now I'm just arguing with you just to argue. Now that's it. I'm just disagreeing with everything you say. If you said
Right.
chocolate, I'd say vanilla.
Yes. Actually, I'm a big fan of like the half and half. What do you call those?
The swirl?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Me too.
Yes.
The swirl in the helmet cup you get at Skydome. That's my jam.
Yes. So good. Worth all $12.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
But you know what? To put the rails back on here and to answer your question, Spence,
Yes.
I think there's concern with John Tavares in the sense of what happened to him at the end of last year was a traumatic event that we don't see happen often. And those things have the ability to linger. And again, I watched a little bit of his availability today, and he was saying all the right things. He feels good. He had a good offseason of training. It didn't keep him off the ice any longer than it absolutely had to. But I think that you don't know how an event like that affects you until you get into real game action. So until he starts seeing some preseason ice, until we see the beginning of the season, I think that's when we'll see how he reacts. I would be more concerned about his mental health than his physical health.
I agree with you. However, the one thing that gives me more solace in that argument than it does for a lot of players is that John Tavares has not had a history of head injuries really prior to that unfortunate situation with Corey Perry in that game during the playoffs and whatnot. So if it was Pat LaFontaine that we were talking about, or if it was Eric Lindros that we were talking about, or what was Brett Lindros that we were talking about, I'd be way more concerned about that than about John Tavares. I mean, obviously, you still need to be concerned because it was a traumatic experience, like you talked about. But I believe that with the people that he has around him and the type of person that he's shown to be throughout his career, he wouldn't go on the ice unless he was absolutely 100% confident that he could be the player that he's been for a long time.
Yeah, you make a really good point there in the sense of this is not a player that even has a long history of injuries. Like he's been a very dependable and durable player. So,
he's the Cal Ripken. He's the Cal Ripken of NHL players, to be honest.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, you're absolutely right. So I'm hopeful, and I'm a big fan of John Tavares. I think that he does so much on and off the ice for the Maple Leafs that I'm just hopeful he comes back at 100%. But I think you're absolutely right. This is a player that's been very durable. We haven't seen a history of injuries, and really, what happened was such a freak accident. I don't know that if you tried, you could recreate something like that.
Right. I want to ask you about two other particular teams, two that we don't normally like to talk about here on the Isolation series, but we're going to talk about them right now. And first and foremost, that is Pierre Dorion and Eugene Melnick's led Ottawa Senators. They've been in a rebuild now for the last 3 seasons for the most part, and have had some great young draft picks, Thomas Chabot being amongst the top of those draft picks. do you believe that they have enough of a young foundation now, quite like the Blue Jays do in baseball, to make a leap forward and become more of a relevant team in the NHL again, as opposed to being a basement dweller?
Yeah, I think the second half of last year's Ottawa Senators is more of what we can expect from this year's team. I think this is a team that's going to continue to get better. I do, however, think that it won't include the playoffs this year. They're still up against what is a very challenging division. You know, you got Tampa Bay, you've got Boston, you've got Toronto, you've got Montreal, you've got Florida. There's probably, I would say there's easily 5 teams in this division that are better than the Senators as we open camp tomorrow. Now, of course, you play the games for a reason. Who knows how they stack up? But I think 2 things are really going to determine and sort of define this season. Number one, where are they with Brady Tkachuk? He wasn't in camp today. He did not report, as he's not signed yet. And can their goaltending bounce back? They've got some nice young goalies, but Matt Murray is still sitting there making, 6 and change and struggling as a starting goaltender in the NHL. So I just think that in the division that they play in, there's going to be too many nights against too many really quality teams for them to be able to push for the playoffs. But I do think that they are a better team than they showed for the first half of last season. And they're going to be feisty. They're going to be a hard team to beat, I think.
And conversely, on the other side, we look at the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, they made that improbable run to the Stanley Cup, losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning. My question to you is, with Shea Weber's future being uncertain, with all of his injuries that he's recovering from currently and that he played through last year, and then Jonathan Drouin finally joining the team again because he had to take a leave of absence due to mental health and anxiety. Good for him. But it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back. Do you expect much out of this Montreal team? Because let's remember also that Carey Price is coming back from having off-season surgery as well, so you don't really know what you're going to get from Carey Price. All indications are that he looks really good from skating side to side and doing the drills that he has been doing lately leading up to camp. But do you think that, if you are a Montreal Canadiens fan, is there still reason for optimism, or should they batten down the hatches, in your opinion, and get ready for a letdown once again?
Well, I think that I think this team is going to take a step back this year. And there's a couple reasons. I think you outlined some really important things. Carey Price coming off another knee surgery. So they did a really great job of signing and securing Jake Allen as a quality backup goalie. So the goaltending is not going to be bad, but I think we all know Jake Allen is not Carey Price, right? It is just no comparison. Losing Philip Deneau and losing Jesperi Kotkaniemi leaves a team that was struggling down the middle to find consistently down the center ice position. Now with Nick Suzuki, who I think is an unbelievable young player, and Christian Dvorak, who I think is an upgrade, like today, an upgrade over Kotkaniemi. As we move down the road, Kotkaniemi could still develop into more of a player because he's still very young. But once you get past those 2 guys, it gets pretty thin pretty quick. Like the Cedric Paquettes and the Ryan Poolings of the world just might not be able to, keep up with some of that, what you knew you could expect out of Deneau, right? So that and all of that is said before we even talk about Shea Weber and the presence that he is, the leader that he is, the producer that he is, the how many minutes he plays. So for me, that's some really big question marks on a team that went on an absolutely incredible run last year. Like, take nothing away from the Canadiens. They played amazing in the playoffs. I think that there's a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty on a team that I think is that looks like they might take a step back this year.
Right. And I want to talk to you about something that was shocking to me and kind of made me a little sad, because you and I have been very fortunate enough to grow up in an era where we've had some spectacular broadcasters across all sports. A couple of years ago, the legendary Bob Cole stepped away after so many years behind the microphone at the age of 87. And yesterday we learned that the other legendary voice of the last, 20 plus years as part of Hockey Night in Canada and Olympic coverage and baseball from back in the day with the Blue Jays in 92 and 93, Jim Houston called it a career after 42 years in the broadcast booth. He was the epitome of professionalism when it comes to Canadian broadcasters. And he was one of those types, in my opinion, and I don't know if you agree with me, that you could pretty much throw anything in front of him, much like a Dan Schulman or something like that, and he could run with it and make it sound great no matter what you threw in front of him, even if it was a last minute thing. So I just wanted to give a special shout out to somebody that put everything he had into everything that he called for 42 years.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Spence. And I think the Dan Schulman comparison is a good one because if I remember correctly, Houston was part of the broadcast team for the World Series runs for the Blue Jays in
That's
92.
exactly what I said. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you said. But yeah, like he's woven in the fabric of Canadian broadcasting. And I almost feel like we haven't I'll say in the GTA in the Toronto area, we almost haven't had him long enough because he did so much in the West Coast. He was a Vancouver Canuck broadcaster for so many years, or I shouldn't say Vancouver, I should say Western Canada, because he did those Calgary games and the Edmonton games, the Vancouver games. And then with Bob Cole taking a lesser role, we heard more of Jim doing the national Leaf broadcasts for Hockey Night in Canada. And I think, I don't know, for me anyway, that's why it sort of felt like a kind of a shock that, he was stepping away. And then as you're reading the articles, you think like 42 years is an incredible career in any field to be able to do it for that long. But yeah, I was a little surprised and I was sad to see him go.
I honestly didn't think he was that old. Like, I knew he was old, but when you think of it, like, I don't know if it says how old he is, but I wouldn't imagine that he's any more than 64 or 65 years old. Am I wrong?
I can look, see if I can find his age here, but yeah, I agree. Like, I don't know if it's just he's got a very youthful look. Like he's always kind of looked the same, which I think makes him, there's almost like a timeless nature to the way that he looks. But you're absolutely right. He's 64 years old. So, I mean, that's not particularly old when we consider how long someone like Bob Cole did it. But I mean, that is the age of retirement, right? Like getting into those mid 60s is kind of when folks retire. So, I mean, good for him. Congratulations on an amazing career. It will certainly be different. Hockey Night in Canada will be different without him, but obviously wish him all the best. And I'm sure he'll kind of hang around the game like many do.
Doesn't it make you sad though to think Bob Cole's gone now? Jim Houston is gone. We're
Harry
seeing
Neal.
Harry Neal. We're seeing near the end of the legendary Al Michaels, who will only be around for a couple more years because he's 78 years old himself. We saw the legendary Marv Albert call his last NBA game this past May. It makes you think that we're losing some of those legendary iconic voices. We have now, in my opinion, for Canada is Chris Cuthbert and Brian Williams. And Brian Williams doesn't even do that much except for like special features nowadays and things like that.
I'd like to give a personal shout out to Dennis Bayak. I'd like to add him to your list. He used to do the Leaf games, and he's been working for the Winnipeg Jets since they returned to the league. But I'm a big fan of his, and if I'm allowed to throw my vote in for who should be taking over on Hockey Night in Canada, I'm putting Dennis Bayak in there.
Also, special shout out as well. I don't know if you saw this, but I saw this the other day when they unveiled the rest of the broadcast team for the NHL on TNT, and Canadian and winner of Gillette drafted on the Score all those years ago, Jackie Redmond, who worked for Sportsnet for a number of years and then went to the NHL Network and the MLB Network, respectively. She is now part of the TNT crew that is going to do NHL games. So to be part of a broadcast team that includes Wayne Gretzky and a few others, good on her for landing that.
Absolutely. And I think there's actually a little bit more like that Sportsnet 360 or the Score or whatever you want to call it, that crew, like I believe Arda Okal is part of ESPN's. He's a correspondent for ESPN. He also works for the MSG network. We saw Cabby return to the Sportsnet family this week. Like that, they're continue to pump out some very quality announcers and broadcasters.
And let's not forget Adnan Burke with the MLB network and ESPN himself.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, like that tiny little studio at what was it, John and Peter, King and Peter, they really pumped out some good broadcasters over the years.
They did, including Renee Paquette and a few others as well.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to listen to her podcast at all?
Oral Sessions?
Yes.
No, but I've had some oral sessions of my own, but that's neither here nor there.
Totally different.
Yes. Have you listened to any of them?
I have. I listened to a little bit here, and I've catch the clips of heard some highlights of some more interesting folks. It's very good. She's so likable, and her interview, she's just such a great interview, great host. So when you're done listening to the Isolation series, of course, this should be your first listen. But after that, go check out Oral Sessions with Renee Paquette. It's quite good.
Now, before we end this show today, have I missed anything? Would you like to touch on anything before we wrap this up? Or have we covered everything for today? And should we get ready for our week 3 preview with our first 3-time guest of the Isolation series tomorrow? And that is the individual himself from CBS NFL coverage and the NBA on TNT and the Yes Network, respectively, Ian Eagle.
I'm excited to talk to Ian. As always, his insight is excellent. And really, it'll be awesome to talk to him about NFL football, because I don't know that we've had the chance. I think we've talked a lot of baseball and basketball, but I don't know if we've talked football with him yet.
We have not.
So, yeah, I'll be looking forward to that tomorrow.
Yes. Anything else? Or should we just put a bow on this one for now?
I think we're ready to put a bow on it. Spence, thanks everyone for listening as always.
Yes. And thank you for tuning into the first edition of the Isolation series on YouTube as well. But if you don't want to catch it on YouTube, you can always still go to podbean.com/the Isolation series, and it'll be there for you. And all the links will respectively be in our stories and stuff like that on IG as well. But as always, for the puffy-haired Paul Shields, I am Spencer Miller. This has been another edition of the Isolation series, and we'll see you all again tomorrow with legendary broadcaster himself, Ian Eagle. Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks once again for tuning in to today's episode of the Isolation series with me, Spencer Miller, and that guy right over there, Paul Shields. As always, today's show has been brought to you by wellbeingsperformance.com. For all your virtual meeting and virtual needs, period, please go to wellbeingsperformance.com, as well as Barbarian Steakhouse, Toronto and the Greater Toronto Area's premier steakhouse facility since 1959. For more information, including any new updates on their menu, please go to barbarians.com, as well as imprintpilates.com, Toronto's premier Pilates studio, and greenstorage.ca, Toronto and the Greater Toronto Area's #1 self-storage facility. For more information, please go to greenstorage.ca. And Paul, please tell people all about some more whole grain goodness that is us.
Folks, be sure to check us out on podbean.com by going to theisolationseries.podbean.com. There you'll find the audio-only versions of the podcast, including all of our past amazing interviews. One more time, that's the isolationseries.podbean.com. And hey, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. It's at @VSpencerMiller and at Pauly Shields, Pauly spelled Pawly. So find us on podbean.com, follow us on Instagram, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And once again, everybody, thank you for watching and or listening and supporting this thing we like to call the Isolation Series. For Paul Shields, I am Spencer Miller, and we will see you again very, very soon.